Forms has been a classic use case in pretty much every app out there. So it's no surprise that we support Forms as a first-class citizen inside the Vyuh framework with the Forms package. This is part of the enterprise plan, but it gives you a very powerful way to manage forms from the CMS with custom fields, validations, inputs, organizing by different steps, reordering things, and so on. All right, this is a quick demo of the StepForm widget and the component that's present inside the Vyuh framework. You can see the step form running on the right-hand side on the simulator and the various steps that have been used to configure this. You can switch between these steps. You can see the details of each form, and you can also change the ordering of these steps over here so that you can quickly see being done. So I'll move the vehicle info to the top, refresh, and you will see that the vehicle info has switched its position inside the tab. Now let's switch back to its previous position. So vehicle info is on the third tab now. Let's refresh, and you can see that it has come back to the third position. You can also manage the ordering of individual fields inside a form. So let's do that for the add win step. So here you can see that I can go into the items, rearrange them. The portable text can be moved to the top. If you refresh, you will see that the portable text is first on the top, and then you see the win field. You can, of course, bring it back to where it was and refresh, and you'll see the win is back again at the top. You can also put up validations for different fields. So here you can see the vehicle identification number as a regular expression that is being matched. And the message that needs to be shown when you have an error can also be configured entirely from the CMS. So if you go to the win field and scroll down to the validations, you see the required and the win as the regular expression. Now, a few of the things you can do inside the step form include saving drafts and also making the whole form sequential. So right now you have the allow drafts set to true, which is why you see the save button at the bottom. But if I go back to the CMS and then turn off the allow drafts and do a refresh, you will see that the save button goes away, which means you cannot save the drafts anymore. Now you can also make the form sequential, which means you cannot go to the next step until you complete the previous step entirely, including all valid inputs. So right now you can see that you can switch between steps pretty randomly. Whereas if I turn it on and then refresh, you will see that you cannot move to the next step until you complete the previous step. So let's put in a valid when, and when you do that, it'll allow you to go on to the next step. Now, as you can expect, the forms package has support for varieties of different fields, like your drop-downs, text fields, password fields, switches, file pickers, image pickers, and so on and so forth. It also has support for different types of custom fields that you can even add if you need to at a later point. Now, one of the most powerful things you can do as a CMS-driven UI is to change the layouts of these components on the fly. So right now we're using a default layout, which is why you see the tab layout, but you can switch to a stepper layout and just refresh the page, and you will see that the whole experience changes to show it as a vertical stepper. And all the core behaviors that you experienced earlier are still available without any change. The only difference being that you have a different experience and an appearance for the different steps. And in case of validations and tracking different things like making it sequential, you'll see that the experience changes to make the other steps disabled and gives a more clear indication of the reason why you can't go to the next step because the previous step is still not complete. So as soon as you add that, you can move on to the next steps and also shows you indicators where a step is valid or invalid. So all of these are possible entirely by changing a simple configuration on the CMS without requiring any special effort. Now, the concept of a layout change for a content item is pretty universal and can be applied both at the route level, at the component level, and so on and so forth, right? So you can do that for, let's say, the select field, where you can go in and pick a default layout, change the various options, and you can see everything refreshing and showing a different experience altogether. Now you can also have custom layouts for individual fields and components. So in this case, we created a dialog layout for the select field, which you can also make as searchable. So now when you make that as the primary layout and hit refresh on your page, you will see a select field that looks very different. When you tap on it, it opens up a dialog that gives you all the options, which you can even search and filter, make a selection. And then when you're happy with the selection, you can even apply and set the selection for the field. Of course, this is completely bidirectional, so when you open the field again, it'll come back with the retained value. So a few other things which are worth mentioning and also include the step status, which is a toggle that you can add at the step form level. If you now refresh, you will see that it shows the status of individual steps and tells you which ones have not been completed and which ones are in a partial state. So it's kind of useful when you are building a pretty complex step form, and for enterprise use cases, this is a very interesting way of giving indication and feedback to the users. You can also attach controllers to the step form, which gives you deeper access to operations such as save and load, which can be used to make network calls for saving and loading the initial data for the form. So overall, the forms package is a very comprehensive solution for managing forms, fields, validations, custom layouts and fields, and a complex use cases such as multi-step forms.